that when we do dua before iftar, which is mustab to do dua before iftar, we raise our hands. Is it okay? And generally when we do dua, is it permitted to raise a hand? The general ruling is that while a Muslim makes dua, it is mustahab, it is encouraged, it is a sunnah to raise your hand. And there's a Sahih hadith of a beloved Prophet ﷺ, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when his servants raise the hands, asking something from Allah, Allah is shy to let the hands return empty-handed. So based on this hadith, it is not a fard to raise your hand while making dua, but it is mustahab, it is encouraged. Now why is the sister asking this question? There is one more ruling in the Islamic Sharia, that dua is an ibadah. When the dua is part of any other ibadah, at that time you should not raise your hand unless there is evidence from the Sharia, from the Sahih Hadith or Quran. Let me repeat, that when you do dua, dua is an ibadah. In other ibadah, like salah, like a khutbah, a sermon, or tawaf, or say, all these are ibadah. When duas are recited during this ibadah, you should not raise your hand, because there is no evidence. Unless there is evidence, at that time only you raise. If there is no evidence and you raise, it is bid'ah, it is not allowed. For example, when you start your salah, and when you are standing for salah, there is a dua. When you go in ruku, there is a dua. When you get up from ruku, you do a dua. When you go in sajda, you do a dua. In between the two sajda, there is dua. In your tashahud, there is dua. You cannot raise your hand in your ruku when you are doing dua. When you get up from ruku, you cannot raise your hand unless there is evidence. There is evidence, for example, if there is dua qanut which you are doing in witr. There is evidence that in witr, when Prophet did dua qanut, he raised his hand. Okay, that's an exception. But there is no evidence that when he is doing sujda, he is raising his hand. When in his tashahud, he is raising his hand. So in this time, it is not allowed to raise your hand. If you raise, it's a bid'ah. Similarly, in the khutbah, you find sometimes when the imam recites, even all the congregation, when the imam is doing dua towards the end of the khutbah, there are people who are raising the hands. That's not part of sunnah, unless it's a dua for istisqa. If the imam is reading, giving a khutbah, and if for dua for istisqa is there, dua for rain, that time in the sunnah it is proven from the Sahih Hadith that the Prophet raised the hand. So that time you raise the hand. But in normal Jummah khutbah, the Prophet never raised the hand. There is no Sahaba who ever raised his hand while doing dua in the Jummah khutbah. Neither the Sahabas, when they heard the Prophet giving the Jummah khutbah, they didn't raise the hand in the dua. So today, if I raise my hand in Jummah khutbah while the dua is being offered, it is bid'ah, because it's an ibadah. Similarly, in the tawaf, we do dua. It's permitted. But no one raises the hands. Yes, you find Muslims when you go to Makkah, while doing tawaf they are raising the hand because of lack of knowledge. The Prophet never raised the hand while doing dua in tawaf. The Sahaba didn't raise. So why are you raising? Similarly, while doing sa'i, the Prophet did dua but didn't raise his hand. So when you are doing sa'i and when you are reciting dua, don't raise your hand. If you raise your hand during this ibadah, in which it is not proven, it is not permitted. So the ruling is, generally in dua, it is preferable to raise your hand. But if it's a part of ibadah, don't do unless proven. Otherwise, for example, in normal duas also, the Prophet entered the bathroom, he did a dua. When he came out of the bathroom, he said, Ghufranaka, he did dua. He didn't raise the hand. So you start raising your hand after you come out from the toilet. That is bid'ah. But generally, otherwise, yes, raising the hand is better, it is preferable. For example, my daughter, she is appearing for an examination and she says, Abba, I have got an examination, please pray for me. So I can raise my hand to Allah and ask Allah that, oh, please see to it that my daughter gets very high marks. I'll raise my hand. It's good, it's preferable. If someone is sick, I'm doing dua for the sick person, I'm doing for myself, I can raise my hand. So generally, raising the hand is good. Even before iftar you raise, it is good, it is preferable, generally is good. But if it's part of any other ibadah, like salah, like tawaf, like khutbah, like say, don't raise unless it is proven like istisqa or for dua qunut. And for general dua, which you know the Prophet did dua and didn't raise that, you also don't raise. But otherwise, if the Prophet raised, you raise, or if it's not mentioned that Prophet did not raise or raise, during a normal dua, general dua, raising is preferable. Even before iftar is preferable, and you'll get more sawab.